Derek and Amy both start the exact same job on the exact same day. Same title, same salary, $62,000 a year. 15 years later, Amy retires. Derek is still working, and he'll be working for another 20 years. Same paycheck the entire time, every single year. The gap isn't luck. It isn't a promotion. It's one number Derek never looked at, and it cost him his 40s. Let's keep this fair. Both of them are 28. Both single, no kids yet, same apartment complex, same commute. Derek gets his first paycheck and does what most people do. He upgrades his car, moves into a nicer one-bedroom, and starts contributing 3% to his 401k because that's what HR auto-enrolled him into. He figures he'll increase it later, once he's making more. Amy gets her first paycheck too. She sits down for 1 hour, looks at her budget, and decides to live on 40% of her income. The other 60% gone into investments before she ever sees it. Her apartment is smaller. Her car is used. Nobody at the office notices any of this because there's nothing to notice. Derek looks successful. Amy looks average. That's the entire story for the first 5 years, and it's already the whole story. By year 5, Derek is doing fine on paper. He's saving 3%. His employer matches half of that, so effectively 4.5% of $62,000 a year, roughly $2,800 annually. His 401k sits around $18,000. He's not worried. He's got decades left. Amy has been investing $37,200 a year for 5 years straight, $37,200. That's 60% of $62,000. At an 8% average return, her portfolio is sitting around $230,000. Derek has $18,000. Amy has $230,000. Same salary, same 5 years. The only difference is one decision made in year 1 that nobody else could see. Here's what happened underneath the surface. Derek's raises came in and his spending grew right along with them. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is the single most common wealth killer among people who consider themselves financially responsible. Every time Derek got a raise, roughly 4% a year, he found a new place for that money. A better car, a bigger apartment, nicer dinners with friends who were doing the same thing. His savings rate never moved. Still 3%, now 3% of a bigger number, but proportionally identical. Amy took a different approach entirely. Every raise she got, she banked half of it and let herself enjoy the other half. Her savings rate didn't just stay at 60%, it climbed. By year 10, she was saving 65% of her income because her expenses barely grew while her salary did. By year 10, the numbers stopped being close. Derek's 401k, still contributing that same 3% with the match, has grown through contributions and market returns to roughly $55,000. He feels behind, vaguely, but doesn't know by how much. Amy's portfolio, now built on a decade of 60+% savings rates and compound growth, sits at approximately $610,000. Derek has $55,000. Amy has $610,000. He makes the same salary she does. He works the same job, sits 3 cubicles away. He has no idea. This is where compounding stops being boring and starts being obvious. The first 5 years, growth is quiet, almost invisible, a number ticking up slowly on a screen. But money makes money, and that money makes more money. And by year 10, the gains on Amy's gains are larger than her original contributions were back in year 1. Derek is still contributing the same flat dollar amount relative to his lifestyle. Amy's money is now doing more work in a single year than Derek's entire annual salary. By year 15, Amy hits her number. Using the 4% rule, the standard benchmark for how much you need to safely withdraw from a portfolio every year without running out of money, she needs roughly $1.4 million to replace her current spending permanently. Her portfolio, compounding at 8% with a savings rate that climbed to 70% by her final working years, crosses $1.5 million. She's 43 years old. She gives her notice. Her co-workers are stunned. Some of them assume she inherited money. Some assume her husband is wealthy. Nobody assumes the actual answer, which is that she simply decided, at 28, to live on a fraction of what she earned and never let that fraction grow back. Derek, meanwhile, is exactly where the average American his age sits. His 401k has grown to around $140,000 after 15 years, boosted by market gains but starved by a savings rate that never left 3%. At his current trajectory, running the same 8% return forward another 20 years to a traditional retirement age of 65, he ends up around $600,000, which sounds like a lot until you realize it needs to fund 20 to 30 years of retirement. He will likely need to work into his late 60s. He is not reckless. He never missed a payment, never carried credit card debt, never made a catastrophic decision. He simply never ran the number that mattered, the one number that decided everything: his savings rate. Here's the part almost nobody says out loud. The gap between Derek and Amy was never about income. It was never about investment picking, market timing, or some secret asset class. It was entirely about the percentage of every paycheck that got invested before lifestyle could claim it. A person saving 10% of their income needs roughly 45 years of saving to retire. A person saving 25% needs about 32 years. A person saving 50% needs approximately 17 years. A person saving 65 to 70%, like Amy, can retire in 10 to 15 years, regardless of starting salary. This relationship is almost mathematically fixed, and it explains exactly why two people earning identical incomes can end up decades apart in freedom. To be fair to Derek's side of this, 60% savings rates are not realistic for everyone. Amy didn't have kids for the first 10 years. She didn't have medical debt, a mortgage on a struggling property, or a family member depending on her income. Extreme savings rates work best for people without competing obligations, and pretending otherwise ignores real constraints that plenty of responsible people face. Derek isn't a failure for supporting a family or living a fuller life in his 30s, but the myth that a comfortable lifestyle now costs nothing later is exactly the myth that quietly erased Derek's 40s. There's also a risk on Amy's side that deserves equal airtime, because showing only the upside would be dishonest. A portfolio built almost entirely for early retirement is more exposed to sequence of returns risk. The danger that a market crash in your first few retired years can permanently damage a portfolio, even if the long-term average return is fine. If Amy retires into a recession, withdrawing from a shrinking account instead of a growing one, her comfortable $1.5 million can shrink faster than the math on paper suggests. Retiring at 43 also means covering healthcare costs for 22 years before Medicare eligibility even begins, an expense that easily runs six figures if not planned for carefully. Early retirees who skip this step often find themselves quietly returning to part-time work within a few years, not because the number was wrong, but because the plan around the number was incomplete. The real trap was never Derek's spending choices individually. It was believing that saving whatever's left over after lifestyle counts as a plan. Amy flipped the order once at 28 and let the math run for 15 years. That single flip is worth more than any raise, any side hustle, any stock pick either of them will ever make. And here's the number that should actually scare you. Not Amy's $1.5 million and not Derek's $600,000. It's this. The average American saves somewhere between 5 and 7% of their income. Not 60%, not even 25, 5 to 7. At that rate, the math says you need somewhere close to 50 years of full-time work before financial independence is even mathematically possible, which for most people means it never actually arrives on paper, only by accident, through inheritance, a home sale, or simply working until the body won't allow it anymore. Derek isn't the cautionary tale here. Derek is actually above average. That's the part that should really make your stomach drop. The question isn't what you earn, it's what percentage of it you decide, on purpose before your lifestyle gets a vote.
Welcome back to the channel. Make sure to subscribe to RichPop right now. Let's get right into the video. Let's get to the video.